This podcast is recorded and produced in the township of Tiny, Ontario, on the traditional lands of the Huron-Wendat Nation and the Anishinaabeg people.
We want to thank the Indigenous people for their past and present stewardship of these lands and waterways, and look to their wisdom to guide us toward a future of harmony and good health for all beings that call Turtle Island home.
She's unique. Lea's creativity sets her apart.
Always makes room for you at the table, no matter what you're going through.
Loyal and committed to her friends and ideals.
If you're going through a really dark time, she's always there.
Welcome back to Originals More Than ALS, the show where we highlight the lives and experiences of the ALS community to spread awareness, education, and hope. I am one of your hosts, Flynn Mason.
And I'm the other host, Haley King.
And today we're joined by ALS Community Ambassador Lea Storry. Thank you so much for joining us today, Lea.
You're welcome.
Lea is a graduate of Toronto Metropolitan University, a professionally trained journalist with a background in history and political science. As a reporter, she's worked and lived around the world and across Canada in places such as the Gambia, South Korea, New Brunswick, British Columbia, Ontario, Nova Scotia, and the Northwest Territories. She currently lives in Alberta and owns a writing business called Our Family Lines. Through the diagnosis of family and friends, Lea has been impacted more than once in her life by ALS and is a 2024 graduate of the Canadian ALS Learning Institute. But perhaps the best way to get to know Lea is through the words of those who know her best. For more on Lea, here's her father Bill and good friend Rosa.
As a father, describing Lea's story, looking at her character, although very shy as a child, Lea has developed a strength of character that one could describe as fearless. From earning her pilot's license to working in Africa to reaching out to other ALS families in creating Speaking ALS in order to raise both funds and awareness, she has been indomitable. Her personality, she's open and welcoming to new acquaintances and also loyal and committed to her friends and ideals. She has volunteered in many areas of life, from helping the homeless, being involved with the SPCA and donating to worthy causes, and she does all this with a peculiar sense of humor. She's unique. Lea's creativity sets her apart. You can see this in her literary career, memoir writing business, and in originating the Speaking ALS book to advance awareness and understanding of the disease. And that's how I see her.
A few sentences about Lea's personality, okay? This is easy. Lea is the kind of person that always makes room for you at the table, no matter what you're going through. If you're celebrating something fantastic, if you're going through a really dark time, she's always there to try and make you smile or just to listen to you if you need to talk about something. It's because she's so genuine and so kind that her book on ALS and her experience with her mom really resonates and resonated with me when I read the book.
Thank you to Bill and Rosa for providing those kind words. They both mentioned Lea's book, Speaking ALS, an Anthology, a project in part inspired by her experience living through the diagnoses of her mother, Shela, and friend, Pauline. Now, Lea, you've had two people in your life diagnosed with ALS, your friend, Pauline Hunt, and your mom. Would you start with telling us a little bit about your friendship with Pauline? I know you guys both lived in Revelstoke, BC, but how did you guys meet?
So we met in the north, in Fort Smith, community of about 3,500 people, next to Wood Buffalo National Park, beautiful national park that no one ever goes to. But yeah, we met playing hockey together, became fast friends, and along with her husband Simon, and they were in Fort Smith. We overlapped about a year and a half, and then she moved to Revelstoke, and she said, "You got to come here. You got to come to Revelstoke."
And eventually, 2 years later, Lea made it to Revi, where her friendship with Pauline continued to blossom. Somewhere along the way, Pauline began experiencing issues with foot drop, something she thought a little physio might fix. But during Christmas of 2009, Pauline was hit with the life-changing diagnosis of ALS. Though it was, of course, a terribly difficult time for Pauline and her family, Lea remarks that they made the best of it.
They took a year and went around the world with their two daughters who were just babies at the time. And they went to Everest, they went to France, they went everywhere. It was incredible. And Pauline died about 3 years ago in June, or is it 4? I'm sorry, time, like with the COVID. And time just is a flat circle. So
Yes,
but she lived about 10 and a half years with ALS.
Wow.
Right.
I noticed that Pauline experienced foot drop as an initial symptom, which is something that our first guest, Andrew Dundas, also mentioned about his experience. When I inquired about how common this symptom is, the CALI grads set me straight.
No, I don't think you could necessarily say that there's any one symptom that would be common, because the disease can be different,
Right.
Or it is different in each person, really. So then it depends too on whether or not it's more limb onset versus what's called bulbar ALS.
To put it simply, bulbar ALS occurs when initial symptoms impact the face or neck rather than the limbs. The motor neurons in the corticobulbar area of the brain and brain stem are impacted, leading to difficulty with speech, swallowing, and facial muscle control. Over time, this leads to deterioration of a person's ability to eat, speak, and express themselves.
Mom's didn't start with her foot. It started with she couldn't swallow, she couldn't eat, and she was losing her voice.
Right, yeah.
I will add that when it came to my mom's ALS, she was not diagnosed for a very long time. And it's because of my experience with Pauline and the way she swallowed, she had trouble swallowing. Of course, that's an ALS, something you live with. And I noticed it with my mom and the way her face looked. It was very similar to Pauline's. And I told my family, I said, I think Mom has ALS. She looks and acts similarly to Pauline.
It took over a year and a half for Lea's mother, Shela, to be diagnosed with ALS. Before her passing, Shela's story was immortalized in Speaking ALS, an Anthology, a book published and edited by Lea. In Shela's chapter, she writes about undergoing an anesthetic procedure related to her heart health just before the issues with her voice began. I considered how having an endotracheal tube inserted for such a procedure could cause irritation to one's airway or the nerves that supply the voice box. Reading her story, I could see how a diagnosis could have been delayed because doctors might have initially thought the troubles with Shela's voice were related to her anesthetic procedure. While this may be a piece of the puzzle, Lea believes there is another, far more devastating reason for the delay in her mother's diagnosis.
And I do think that's kind of a common thing with ALS, that because it is technically a rare disease, that doctors might, they're not going to jump to that as being the first potential cause for something. They're going to look for a more obvious or a more likely cause for somebody's symptoms than necessarily that. But I was going to ask you that, Lea. I thought to myself, your experience with Pauline as your friend, I wondered if you had any suspicions before your mom's diagnosis, because yes, it looked to me like it took more than a year and a half for your mom to actually be diagnosed, which is a long time considering, how poorly it sounded like she was doing. But yes, I wondered if you had any suspicions about the disease. So clearly you did. Yeah,
I did. And I think the other reason Mom wasn't diagnosed quicker was because she is a woman. Yeah, and that's just, has been forever, sexism in medicine. So she was told because she's a woman, she was stressed. Oh no, you're just stressed or you're depressed. And Mom said, I'm the least stressed person in the world. I don't worry. And yet she was constantly told she was stressed and depressed. So,
yeah, that's terrible.
The diagnosis process was long and strenuous for Lea's family. They explored countless avenues to no avail, but about 3 months before Shela's final diagnosis, Lea began to see the similarities between Pauline's condition and her mom's.
Mom was a nurse too, so she was digging into all these, symptoms. She was online trying to figure out what she had, and, her family doctor was amazing, and whatever she said, okay, can we look at this? And our doctor would say, yep, let's look at that, and send her to somebody. And it was always the experts who were like, no. So,
I see.
It did take a while. But again, the symptoms I didn't notice until July. And then September, she had the diagnosis.
When Lea said her mother looked a lot like Pauline, I was reminded of an experience with my mother, a moment where I realized the disease was beginning to rob her of expression.
There was one day when I was visiting my mom and dad in Ottawa, and it was morning. I got up to have breakfast, and my mom was already downstairs eating, sitting at the table. And I looked at her and said, good morning, Mom. And at the time, she couldn't speak anymore then, but she was still able to get up and move around and whatnot. Anyway, I thought she was mad at me because she just kind of looked at me. And the thing is, there was no expression on her face because, there was weakness of the facial muscles. So she couldn't have facial expressions, right? And I remember thinking that she's angry with me. What did I do? Oh my gosh, what did I do? What did I say? A few minutes later, I realized, my heart just sank. I was like, she's not mad at me. This is what ALS does, or it's one of the things that ALS can do to people.
It takes their expressions.
Lea's mother was the middle child of a war bride, with 2 older sisters and a younger sister and brother. Lea's Nana married a Canadian soldier that she met on her uncle's farm in Scotland, and he brought her to northwestern Ontario, living on a farm in the woods. Shela was the first child in the family, born while her dad was home from the army, and she just adored her father. Unfortunately, he died of a heart attack when Shela was 6, her mother raising 5 children on a farm in northwestern Ontario by herself.
Yeah, my mom said she didn't know they were poor. Like, she's like, I had everything. I had love, I had food, I had clothing, I was warm, I was sheltered. And so that's the way she lived her life, knowing that, she had all this stuff that she could have complained about. Oh, I didn't have this, I didn't have that, my dad died. She never complained. She got on with things.
Lea had a first-person essay published in the Globe and Mail in May of 2025, where she describes a difficult day as her mother's caregiver. An excerpt from that essay really stuck with me. It reminded me of my mother. I'm an adult, she says, but I still need her. She always said she gave me roots so I could have wings, but I don't want to think of my life without her. She's my fiercest protector, the one who knows what to do in any situation, the one who brings light into the darkness with her words and makes everything okay.
She was a nurse. She was a healer. She was a nurturer. She loved dirty jokes. My dad would say that sometimes, and he'd be like, Shela. She was funny. She loved to ask questions. And it was embarrassing as a teenager because my mom would ask my friends so many questions, but that's how I became a journalist, is because my mom was curious. I'm curious. I'm always asking questions, even though I tell myself, just be quiet. Don't ask any more questions. But yeah, she was an amazing, amazing person, as well as an amazing mom. And I'm 50, and I still would call her for things. We spoke every day. So when she got ALS, for her to lose her voice, it's just amazing what technology can give us these days. Texting and text to speech. That's just fantastic. But you still miss that, the sound of my mom's voice. I miss that. Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, I think, I am sure that the technology has come a long way since my mom was still alive. My mom passed away in 2008. I still think even nowadays, it could be difficult to participate the same way in a conversation as the 3 of us can right now, even if you have the help of technology. So the disease can definitely kind of isolate a person, even if they're in a room with other people. It just can be harder to participate in a conversation.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And those nuances, like sarcasm,
yeah, right.
I was like, are you being serious? Are you being sarcastic? And then it's hard to type sometimes. You don't want to type every single thought in your head.
That's right. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Even me, I have friends that I'll text with and then sometimes send voice messages to. And I tend to prefer texting, but I have friends all the time that are like, I just don't have the energy to write something out right now. It takes additional mental effort to write a sentence down and make something more permanent, regardless of ALS and the actual physical difficulties of typing. It's a lot for your mind too.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Lea lived in Edmonton at the time of her mom's diagnosis. She would go home every few months, but as Shela got sicker, Lea would come home for months at a time. The change in routine was a difficult one for Lea, who recalls feeling frustration when simple things like saying goodbye to go get groceries or see a friend began taking much longer than before.
But it's like, why are you getting annoyed because you're taking 10 minutes longer to tell your mom where you're going, who you're going to see, and what you're going to do? Like, she's stuck at home. And I was getting annoyed, being like, oh, I got to, build 10 minutes into my departure time because I'm going to have to tell mom what I'm doing. And she's going to have to type and say, well, who are you seeing? What are you going to get at the grocery store? And that's on me. Like, I'm a time-driven person. And to me, that 10 extra minutes was like terrible, but it wasn't when I look back on it. It was time with mom.
I can relate to that too, Lea. I mean, working in a job where like time mattered all the time. Like, we had appointments we had to keep. And sometimes, as a practicing veterinarian, sometimes I was facing life-threatening things. So yes, time did matter. And I had to make use of every single moment. So I understand that feeling of like, yeah, when you got a plan, you got things you're doing, it's hard to slow down, right? So.
And when you're an independent person, like I've lived with my husband for 15 years, it's like, this extra step. And it's just, looking back on it, it is horrible that I've reacted and felt that way. And that's the thing is that, ALS, it takes so much from the person living with ALS, and you don't fully understand it until the person's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is so stressful.
During some of our CALI meetings, the topic came up of how we as community ambassadors can help other people who don't have experience with ALS understand what it's like. It's during these sorts of conversations with others who have been affected that I frankly feel I'm not sure we can. And that's not to say that we shouldn't try, but more that to have true, deep understanding, this requires firsthand experience.
I think it's like a lot of things in life. You're not going to get it until you're in that situation. It doesn't necessarily have to be where you're helping somebody with ALS. It could be anybody who's a caregiver, right? Where like helping another person who has limited abilities, regardless of their age, that is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week job. When somebody needs help to do like the daily activities of life, it's like they need the help around the clock. And then for the folks who are the caregivers, it's really difficult because you want to help. And clearly, Lea, you were there to help and you were helping. And I'm sure your mom loved having you there. I mean, I guess I can only imagine that as a mom. Like if I was unwell, if I were your mom and my kids were there to help me, I would be thrilled just that they were there. But it's understandable that people get frustrated, and our family was no different. There were things that happened where, you just sort of wish maybe you hadn't said a certain thing or done a certain thing, but yeah, we're human, so.
In another personal essay published in the Globe and Mail, Lea talks about working at Anchorage House at Mount Allison University, a home that was once owned by Captain Ronald Bennett. He lived there with his first wife, Elva, and his sons, Edwin and Henry. Lea worked in what was once Elva's bedroom, and lamented about ghostly experiences there, hearing thumps and bumps that spooked her throughout her days. But after moving on from Mount Allison, Lea learned more about the Bennett story. Elva's sons had died only a week apart, and she was known to climb the stairs to their bedrooms to grieve. Elva passed away mere months after her sons did. A line from Lea's essay stuck with me. Elva's grief became a ghost story. What should have haunted me was not knowing the history her story contained, a history that many Canadian families from coast to coast share. This line made me think about ALS. It's something that many families experience but don't necessarily want to talk about for fear of reliving the many traumas and atrocities associated with this disease. And my question for you is, how do we stop our grief from becoming a ghost story? When it makes it so difficult to talk about our loved ones, how do we find the strength to remember the beauty that existed in one's life, to make sure that hope shines through in their memory?
Well, I guess it is like, and this is cliche and trite and all that stuff, but you always have them in your heart and you always have them in your memories. And that's something that you carry forward. And talk about the person, share stories. Like, say, somebody's eating chocolate ice cream. Say, well, my friend loved chocolate ice cream. And it's, oh, yeah, tell me about it. We all have different ways to express grief, and it's really hard to pinpoint one thing, or something to, either make our grief less. Actually, that is the thing. Nothing will ever make our grief less, even time. The first year, I was fine. I was sad, but editing the book gave me something to focus on. It's actually now that I've been feeling it more and more. Mm-hmm. So where I grew up was Bay of Fundy, so the Minas Basins, and they have one of the highest tides in the world. And that's what grief is to me right now, because when the water went out, I felt that was, I wasn't dealing with anything, or I was actually fine. But now the water's coming in, and it's like tons and tons and tons of pressure, putting pressure on me, and I'm feeling that grief acutely right now. Yeah.
Oh, Lea, yeah, that's tough. I did have a similar experience. Initially, after my mom died, I was terribly sad, but I just kept distracting myself with things. Oh, and I gave myself this big project to do. And once that thing was done, then it hit me like a ton of bricks, and in part it didn't come out in the best possible way initially when it really sort of hit me. But all of that is just to say that I had a similar experience. So, and for me, my mom's been gone for, now I forget the math, but say 18 or 19 years. So, and of course I still miss her. So I can think about her often. Yeah.
Grief is like a backpack. And you carry it, and sometimes you can put it down. You can take it off, but you always have to put it on again.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was in part due to this desire to humanize those affected by ALS and keep their memories alive that Lea decided to put out a call for stories for what would eventually become Speaking ALS, an anthology. Lea edited and published the book, a collection of memoirs, personal essays, and nonfiction poems contributed by 20 writers in the ALS community. These stories span grief, love, anger, comfort, and hope, with the goal of creating connections and an understanding of ALS, with all proceeds going to the ALS Society of Canada.
The fundraiser book, that's partly why I decided to put a call out for stories is, first of all, my mom and Pauline were people. They had hopes and dreams, and they had things they wanted to do, and obviously they weren't going to do them. And I wanted people to see them as people and not just patients lying in a bed needing care. I wanted people to hear their stories. But another reason was to give caregivers the opportunity to say, this is what it's like, this was my experience, and to show people that it is tough, but you do it because you love your family member or your spouse or your friend. And they were people too, and you're a person too dealing with this, and there's not just one way of dealing with it.
Lea's friend, Pauline Hunt, was an incredibly talented artist and graphic designer, foraying into digital artwork with Revelstoke's natural beauty inspiring her exploration of patterns and textures within personal landscapes. Her piece, Inspiration Woods, depicts a collection of birch trees covered in small print font of inspirational messages. Lea chose this piece as the cover artwork for Speaking ALS, an anthology.
One question I had for you was the cover art, because it's one of Pauline's pieces. And I wondered if you could just talk about what was it in particular about that piece. And I went on Pauline's website and I looked at some of her art. It's beautiful. It's so intricate. And the piece you chose, I feel is very apt, but I wanted to hear from you. Yeah, what was it about that particular piece of art that made you choose it for the cover of the book?
Well, first of all, Pauline loved the outdoors. She was a champion downhill mountain biker in her youth and skier. Even though she was born in Toronto, she loved the mountains and headed out west as soon as she could. So it was the trees. The trees symbolized to me, outdoor and freedom. And then the birch bark is made out of words, like sayings. And Pauline could still talk, was very faint, but you could still hear her talk. And so the words on the birch bark is like her voice. And so that tied in with the speaking ALS part.
I see.
And then, of course, my mom lost her voice. So that it was important for me to show words. And Pauline had done that piece a few years ago. And it was perfect.
Yeah. Well, yeah, actually, when you say too that Pauline's voice was very faint, the font of the words, it's very small, which, I mean, to me, that represents so well then like a small voice, right? As in it's a faint voice, or for your mom as her voice was fading.
Yeah, but they're still here. They're still here.
Okay, so you put out this call for the stories, and how did you reach the ALS community?
So I was a CALI grad, and so we put it on the newsletter. I just started emailing all the ALS organizations in North America. I just Googled ALS organizations, associations, all those, went to the thesaurus and got, all those organizations, societies, group.
Yep.
I just started emailing them and saying, this is what I'm doing. Can you put the call out? And also, as a writer, I belong to the Writers Guild of Alberta, so I posted it there. And that's where Lori Hannell, she's a Calgarian, she saw that call. And I put it out across Canada. Every province and territory has a writing association. So basically, I just spammed everyone and said, stories.
Give me your story. Yeah, right on.
I was hoping for 50 stories, but I got 20. And in the end, 20 is perfect.
Yeah. I mean, I love the book. I'm sure I've read it a couple times now, and I'm sure I'll keep turning to it. It's one of those books. I have a few where, I know every once in a while I'm going to pull that book out and I'm going to reread something. And there's a lot of amazing stories in there. So you did a great job, Lea. I know it wasn't just you, everybody that contributed, great stories.
Yeah, thank you.
In November of 2025, Lea attended the ALS MND International Symposium in San Diego. As it so happens, this conference for ALS and other motor neuron diseases landed on the 1-year anniversary after Shela's death.
I went, partially to promote the book, but partially to learn and to meet the researchers, the doctors, the scientists who are coming together to share their findings. A lot of science, it's over my head. It's like, I don't know what you're talking about. But amazingly, some of these scientists are storytellers, and they can explain their medicine, their research in ways that anyone can understand. The one thing I did not realize until I got to the conference was how many scientists, research doctors actually have a personal connection to ALS MND.
Okay.
Like I met 3 people. They were all either had family members and one dentist. She was coming up with a kind of like an exercise Fitbit that is for people with ALS MND.
Okay.
Yeah, her husband had ALS and wanted to know how much he was doing in a day. And and that was her impetus for researching and funding this project.
Yeah, wow. Neat. I mean, because definitely in like with ALS Canada, their research symposium, I guess it happens every year. I don't know a ton about it, but one of the comments I can remember being repeated more than once during our CALI sessions was that, for a lot of researchers, they don't know anything actually about the disease. That's good to hear. I mean, yes, there are people out there who probably are doing what they're doing with research because they have had a direct relation that was affected by the disease. So, yeah.
Lea attended as what's called a patient fellow. For Lea, this meant she was a caregiver to someone with ALS, whereas other patient fellows were people actively living with ALS. These patient fellows were given special scarves to wear, such that others at the conference knew they were allowed to approach and ask, "What was your experience?"
And yeah, people did come up to me, including there's one woman who, I'm not sure if I can say what she's doing because I'm not sure if it's patented or not, but it would it would be earth-shaking, like it would mean a lot for ALS MND. It's a simple procedure. And so she said, could I fill out a survey for her? Asking, my experiences, my family's experiences, and would this device help? So that was great to be able to answer some of her questions.
Lea was pleasantly surprised by the virtual learning options that were provided at San Diego's ALS MND Symposium, as these kinds of conferences are generally located in urban centers, which can create a lot of difficulty for people with ALS to attend, particularly those who live in rural areas. Making this kind of learning accessible is a great step in the right direction, but does not address the great challenges of accessing appropriate care and resources for those in rural communities who are actively living with ALS. Lea's mom lived in an isolated rural community in Nova Scotia during her illness, creating many difficulties that we'll hear Lea speak on in just a moment.
Because mom was in rural Nova Scotia, there are not a lot of new research and new drugs, trials, and testing and stuff like that she could access. So if you are in Halifax, if you are in Toronto, if you're in Vancouver, that's awesome. You're hopefully going to get access to all the new stuff and the old, like all of it. But being in a rural area in, I'll say, most of Canada is tough.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about geographically, just that our country is huge and these ALS multidisciplinary clinics, which, are meant to be helping folks with the disease and also potentially sites for clinical trials, they are located in the more densely populated areas. And I kind of took a look at on the ALS Canada website just where the clinics are located, and clinics are classified differently too. And just for people listening, in terms of what a multidisciplinary clinic is, I mean, this is really about folks with ALS require help from allied health professionals. So they may need the help of physiotherapist, occupational therapist, speech pathologist, social worker, respiratory therapist, neurologist. When my mom went to the Ottawa Hospital Clinic, we had access to a pastor there as well. So there's all these different folks that you could see for your ALS appointment, right? You basically kind of traveled around and went to the ones that you needed to. So all of these things, I'm going to maybe pick out specifically occupational therapy, physio, respiratory therapy are very, very important. And it's not all the centers have all of those services available. So, the bottom line is that there's a lot of people that don't have access to those clinics, and they also don't have access to any clinical trials. So what do you think, Lea? I mean, do you have ideas in terms of how can this be addressed?
I think you need to start small. So mom fell and broke her hip, and she had to be taken to the hospital in the valley where we lived. This hospital staff could not feed her. She had a feeding tube. They could not feed her. So my dad, or me and one of my sisters, had to stay there and feed mom. And so then just that, little things like that, explaining to people what ALS is. And these are medical professionals, and they don't know much about ALS. And mom was cognitive, and one nurse kept talking to mom like she was an idiot and couldn't hear her. And I was just nope, she's nonverbal, but she knows what you're talking about. And she was a nurse, so she knows what you're doing. Just, talk to her like you would anyone else. And this person wouldn't. I don't think this woman was evil or had bad intentions. She just didn't know how to.
Yeah.
So I think it's just, we need to start small and start even like have packages or brochures or something that somebody could read on the fly, like online, that says, this is ALS, this is some of the symptoms, the most common ones, but, talk to the patient, talk to their family, their caregiver, ask how to help them.
Yes, yeah. That's a good point. This disease would be a perfect example where it's so important to have family, somebody who can go to appointments with you to help, like with the communication part, right? And make sure that, the person who has ALS, that all their concerns are properly addressed.
Yeah, it's hard. I think, especially for people my age, when it comes to advocacy, I think a lot of people have the feeling that education and awareness is great, but it's not enough. And I think that that's true to a certain degree, but you have to complete step 1 before you can get to step 2, right? And we're still in this stage with ALS where the education and awareness piece probably is the biggest piece.
Yeah, and I know everyone is busy. Nurses, doctors, like the other hospital staff, they're so busy. They're pushed to the limit. I just wanted somebody to say, how can we help you?
Yeah, I think it goes back to this idea of just compassion.
To be clear, we do not underestimate the complexity of working in the human healthcare system. It's an incredibly difficult field full of talented and compassionate people who are doing their best to care for and accommodate an incredible range of human experiences. No matter how much education one receives, this is a huge task to take on, and we thank every member of the healthcare system, no matter the role they play.
I do understand, too, how it's difficult. I can only imagine being in the human healthcare system, right? Like, I think there are just many, many obstacles. And I am very grateful for all the doctors and nurses and other people that work in hospitals, right? We need their help. I almost feel like in some ways this speaks to like how we have to take care of ourselves as a caregiver, but also like for folks that work in the healthcare system, you have to take care of yourself so that you can be present for your patients that you're supposed to be taking care of, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In Nova Scotia, there exists the Carry Me Fund, an organization that provides financial assistance to people with life-threatening illnesses who want to stay in the comfort of their home with their family. It's a memorial fund created by Marilyn Carey and her daughter Stephanie. Marilyn's husband Bill had cancer, and the family was able to keep him home during his final days. Marilyn and Stephanie wanted to remember Bill by creating the Carry Me Foundation in hopes of helping other folks with life-threatening illnesses stay home with their loved ones. Lea and her family were helped by the Carry Me Fund.
And so that helped my family because we could have some extra funds, like financial aid, for stuff like hiring caregivers for respite.
Right.
That was amazing. And I think it was for some of the drugs too.
Okay.
Yeah. And that, like, my family is not poor. We had enough money that we didn't qualify for, any financial, but we weren't, obviously we're not billionaires. So we're not, everything's coming out of our own pocket. So the Carry Me Fund helped us just give Mom some extra comfort and helped us with her care because we could, have a little bit of respite here and there. And it's not very well known in the valley, Annapolis Valley, Nova Scotia. So I think people should be more aware that this kind of help is there for them and that it will help them. Of course, it's a drop in a bucket, but because there's just so much money that just flies out the window when you have a person living with ALS. You need syringes, you need machines to pump the food, you need food, like the complement, and there was another liquid diet food. It's like $300 a case, I think. So
wow, yeah.
There's so much money that just flies out the window. So you're looking for anything that helps, anything that will subsidize and help you. My dad still has to live after this. So my middle sister, Kyla, and younger sister, Sarah, and Dad, They all went and looked through, okay, what can we use here? What kind of insurance will cover this? What will do this? And it's just like piecemeal stuff.
Right.
Yeah. But if like the Carry Me, it's right there. You can use it. And we need to publicize it, promote it more. So
yeah, absolutely.
So people can use it.
I would just say something, as well, I maybe like to add to that is this also brings up the importance of these ALS multidisciplinary clinics, because I can tell you that for my mom and dad in Ottawa, I went to all of the appointments with my mom and dad. We always went to see the social worker. So the social worker was also critical to help, like, my mom and dad figure out, like, okay, here's where there's money that you can access from the government. Like they knew all that stuff that you're saying, Lea, your dad and your sisters had to kind of try to figure out. So just another thing where people affected by this disease, they really need access to those clinics.
I was just going to say that, like, my family, we did have support. So it's not like we were doing everything by ourselves. We did have, there was a palliative team that was very helpful. Our family doctor was very helpful. The ALS clinic in Halifax was very helpful. It's just, you need to take things on yourself and to figure things out, because not one agency has everything figured out for you. Like, you need to take this from this place, this from that place, that from that place. Okay, let's get going.
Yes, fair point. Yeah, very good.
Something of great importance to Lea is the health of caregivers, and she recounts feeling very challenged by the lack of routine created by a disease like ALS.
For me, I'm not a very emotional person, and my family is very, very open and loves talking about things and cries, but that is not me for some reason. So, so I like to exercise. That is how I deal with my emotional, mental stuff.
Yeah.
And when you're a caregiver, there's no routine. You can't say, at 1:00, I will go for a run. No, you can't.
Right.
Because there's no routine. You think at 1:00, after mom's had her meal and everything's cleaned up, that, you can step out, but you can't, because nothing's ever regular, ever normal. So you just have to go when you can and not expect to have a routine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's one way. It's like, okay, I have 5 minutes. I guess I'm not going to go for a run, but you know what?
Right.
I'll lift some weights, or I'll do this, or do that.
So for you, like, physical activity was a helpful thing.
Oh yeah, it was a very helpful thing, but you couldn't count on it every day.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And what do you think? I mean, in terms of, do you have ideas about what you think needs to be done or made available to help support caregivers?
Just time. But that's the other thing. It's a loop. You want to have somebody come and give you respite and say, okay, take 2 hours. Take 2 hours, go do. But then you feel guilty because you're like, oh, that's 2 hours I could be spending with mom, but I'm like out doing stuff with my friends.
Right.
But on the other hand, you have to realize that you can't be in the situation 24/7, because you need to stay focused. You need to stay healthy yourself. If you're sick, you're no good to the person who you're taking care of.
Lea's father, Bill, was a fiercely loyal caretaker for his wife, so much so that Lea worried greatly about how the stress and strain of it all would impact his health. She feared that they would soon have 2 people to care for. While her father was eventually able to spend a small amount of time away from Shela, she was never off his mind.
He was always checking in, texting, calling, like, how's Shela doing? And it is a tough way to live, just thinking that you have to be there 24/7 and that you can't give yourself a break. Mm-hmm. You need to give yourself a break. You need to step away, and even just to get a clearer focus, because sometimes it's depressing. It's like, this is my life right now, constantly filling up syringes, changing bed sheets, dealing with depends, dealing with doctors, dealing with caregiver, like the VON was awesome, the Victoria Order of Nurses, but sometimes they didn't show up. So,
Right.
Yeah, so it's just, you have to do everything yourself, and you just get caught in this mindset, like this is it forever. And sometimes you need to break out and say, oh no, like there's other stuff going around. My loved one can't be with me at this point, but I need to focus on something else for a bit.
I was pondering Lea's career as a journalist and thought about the kinds of words one might associate with journalism. Tenacious, persevering, fighter. These are the same kinds of words that someone might use to try and raise up a person living with ALS or their caretakers. But these words can at times ring hollow to those facing the daily struggles of the disease. I asked Lea what would be a more helpful way of offering support to the caregivers in your life.
Just asking, what can I do? What can I do today? No, do you just need a phone call? Do you need to go out for coffee? Do you want me to stop in so we can pop out, for even 10 minutes, walk around the yard, go for a bike ride or something, do something different. All those words like fighter and stuff like that, they just ring, they're ring hollow. It's just, Yeah,
it kind of does for me too. When you think about like fighting some disease, and I know this is part of your the foreword in Speaking ALS Anthology. I could relate to that too. Just this idea, like you can't fight some disease, even though even in my mind I viewed it as like an enemy. What is this ALS thing? Like, get lost. It's just a weird way to kind of look at it. And there's no fighting something. You just. Yeah, it's like a lot of things, right? Things are just outside of your control. So I just like the point that you made that, what's critical is just to take a break, like a physical break, step out of the situation, which also gives you a mental break. It could just be for 10 minutes, but that 10 minutes could make a huge difference for you.
Yes. Yeah. 10 minutes outside of yourself, instead of in your head thinking, oh, I got to do this, I got to do this next, I got to do this next. Yeah. And it's not a break from the person. That's the thing. It's not a break from the person. It's just a break from some tasks.
Yeah, it is a break from what's going on inside your own head, which sometimes is a really bad place to be. Because you're just so worried, right? Like you're so filled with worry and concern. So, yeah.
And no one ever gets better from ALS yet.
Right. Yeah. Hopefully that's going to change soon.
Yes.
People are working on it.
Yeah, they are.
A lot of smart people.
Around the world.
People.
Around the world. Yeah. And it's amazing. All right. Now Florence is playing with the ball that has a bell in it, so you might hear it.
It was at this point that Lea's cat, Florence, awakened from her slumber and began playing with a small, jingly ball. Well, perfect timing. Lea's writing business, Our Family Lines, offers a variety of services, including pet biography writing. So we asked Lea to share with us a brief biography of her cat, Florence.
Yeah, it was my husband and I's wedding anniversary, and we're in Edmonton. I usually walk to meet him on his way home, and we're walking home, and we saw this cat panting in the alley. She looked very distressed.
Oh.
And we went and we looked at her, and she was still panting, and a woman came out of her house, and we said, "Is this your cat?" And she said, "No, it's not." But the woman said, I have 2 cats. I'll take her with me. And what's your phone? So we gave the woman our phone number, and she said, okay, I will text you. We said, if you need anything, text us. Because we were not allowed pets in our Edmonton apartment because we were renting.
Oh. Okay.
And we love cats. And my husband is he just loves cats, and he saw Florence first. And so the woman took Florence in, and the next day she texted me and said, "Can you come and get her? She is beating up my other 2 cats."
Oh, dear.
So I went and I picked up Florence, and I brought her into our apartment, even though we weren't supposed to have pets. And she acted like she had lived with us forever. And that's how we got her.
Wow. So do you know why she was panting out there?
We have no idea. We took her to the vet. We actually gave her to Edmonton Bylaw for a week so they could try and figure out if she had an owner. And she was up on their website, but no one ever claimed her. Yeah.
Interesting.
We don't know what happened to her. She was well fed. She wasn't skinny or anything. She was fixed, and she's the sweetest cat. And so we don't understand why somebody would just kick her out on the street.
Yeah.
But we're lucky.
Yeah. She found her new home.
Yes.
It was fate. You walked by and there she was.
There she was. And my husband noticed her. I didn't even see her.
Right?
Yeah.
His sharp kitty eyes.
Yes. He always, like, wherever we go in the world, he's always patting the cats.
Aw.
Of course, as lifelong animal lovers ourselves, my mom and I each had to share a story about one of our many pets as well.
So Chloe was a little beagle. She, like a similar kind of background story as Florence, in that I was working at a veterinary emergency clinic. And this one weekend it was very busy, and somebody brought this dog in and said, "Oh, I found her in the backyard. She was running around in my backyard. I have no idea how she even got in there." I was looking at Chloe, and my mom had said to me at some point, "Oh, Haley, if you ever come across a nice little dog, I might like to get another dog." Chloe ended up belonging to my mom and dad. Anyway, make long story short, my mom said, "Okay, I'm worried that Chloe's going to knock me over. I've fallen a few times." She'd already been diagnosed with ALS at this point. So she said, "Chloe does this thing where she scoots around between my legs. She's going to knock me over. You take her. The kids need a dog." So Chloe came to live with us. The first camping trip we went on, and when my kids were younger, my husband and I, we got this little pop-up trailer, and we went to a lot of different provincial parks in Ontario. And the first trip we went on, the first night we were sitting there, we had the fire going, we were making s'mores, playing 20 questions, and we had Chloe out there on a line. We couldn't just let her go loose because she would take off. And I happened to turn around. I heard this little whimpering sound, and I turned around, and there was Chloe at the very end of her line, pulling as hard as she could. And she would look at us and whine, and then she would look back at the trailer, and then she'd look at us and whine. And I said, "Oh my gosh, Chloe, you want to go in the trailer?" She just looked at me. So I got up and I opened the trailer door, and she just made a beeline for her little bed, curled up, and that was it. She was a hilarious dog, really, but a handful, but we loved her.
There are lots of stories I could tell, but I'm going to go with the hamster that I had in college. It wasn't really mine. It was my roommate's. She's the one who would take it home and care for it when we weren't at school, but we were also not allowed to have pets. And we kept this hamster secret. He had to hide it from the cleaners and everything. And he was ridiculous. His name was Butter. There was a night where we were sitting in the living room and we had his cage out there and we were talking, and all of a sudden we turned around and he was halfway down the hallway. And there was another time that he had gotten out and we came home. My roommate was just sobbing because she couldn't find Butter, didn't know where he was. And my roommates crocheted. So they had the stuffing, the filling for all these things that they would crochet. And sooner or later, it took hours, but we found Butter, and he had scurried his way into the back of my roommate's closet and eaten through the bag of stuffing and was just curled up in there.
Nice little nest.
Aw, he's pretty smart.
In talking about pets, I was reminded of a picture I'd come across of Lea's mother, a beautiful candid photo associated with her obituary, in which she lovingly looks into the eyes of a golden retriever. Lea tells us about this photograph.
Oh yeah, so that's my youngest sister's dog. His name's Quentin, and we call him Q-Man. And that photo was taken at my middle sister Kyla's, I think it's her wedding rehearsal. So that night, Q-Man loves my mom and dad, and my sister Sarah, she calls them Grandpa and Grandma, and so Q-Man he loves attention from my mom, and he would just get right up in her face and be like, pat me, pat me, pat me.
Yeah.
And mom loved Q-Man ever since he was a little puppy. So their relationship was really sweet. And he made mom smile. Her smile is so wide and bright in that photo, and that's why
it's
we
beautiful.
picked it. Yeah.
At the end of our discussion, Lea left us with a crucial message to remember.
I would like to tell listeners that when you're caring for somebody living with ALS, it's going to be tough. You can't imagine it. You can't explain it. But being there for the person after they're gone, it'll mean the world to you that you've taken that time and spent that time and actually cared for them. I mean, I do not know what it's like to live with ALS. I'm sorry to those people living with ALS, but your caregivers are, just talk to them, tell them what you need, don't hold back. And same with caregivers. Ask the person you're caring for what they want, what they need, what they're looking for. And thank you too for doing this show. This is amazing. It's nice to connect with people who understand what I went through. Like of course my family does, but it helps to talk with other people.
Yeah, for sure. There's like a sense of healing or something. Just, yes, it helps with that feeling of being alone. Like you're not the only one, and there are people out there that understand how difficult it is. Yeah,
it's a community, and it's too bad we have this community, but it is a needed community.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
All right, how'd you feel about that conversation?
I really liked it. Lea and I have a lot of similarities in our story and our experience. It was her mom affected by ALS. It was my mom. I mean, thinking specifically about her mom, and obviously she had Pauline, her good friend as well. But yeah, her parents, she lived far away. She had other responsibilities in her life. Our experiences are not exactly the same. There's just a lot of similarities. So I get a lot of how she probably feels now and a lot of the struggles she would have had when her mom was still alive.
Right. I appreciated the way that she talked about caregiving and the health of caregivers, because focusing on the people that have ALS feels like the obvious thing to do when you're talking about ALS, right? And obviously that's incredibly important, but it is also important not to forget about the people that are doing the caregiving and these family members. And it's one of those things that I think until you're doing caregiving, whether it's for somebody with ALS or another illness or somebody who's just getting older and needs more help, you don't really realize how difficult and taxing that can be, both physically and mentally, until you experience it. And so I think she's right that the health of caregivers is something that we should be paying more attention to. And I appreciated her sharing her thoughts on that with us.
I mean, one of my favorite parts was talking about our pets because, I love my dogs. And I appreciate that you brought up Butter because that's a great story too. He's a great little hamster. And the little Butter man. But yeah, I thought it was neat again for this particular episode where all of a sudden we're ready to talk about the pet biographies, and just at that moment, her cat Florence woke up and started batting the ball around. You could hear the little bell dingling in the background. And it was like kind of one of those, what do you call it, moments, coincidence or something like that.
Yeah. And we had a similar thing happen when we were talking to Andrew, where we were talking about the different ways that you can help people with ALS and how doing little things and specific tasks for people with ALS can be really helpful. And it was at that time that bunch of kids knocked on his door and offered to shovel his driveway, and that too felt like one of those weird coincidences, right? So I don't know. It's almost like Nana's helping us out with our podcast, giving us a couple easy little transitions.
Yeah. Or it's just, it's her sense of humor because, she's a little cheeky. So I kind of wonder about that too. Yeah. Maybe she's around listening. So
it's a nice thought.
It is. Yeah.
That brings us to the end of today's episode of Originals More Than ALS. We'd like to extend a huge thank you to Lea Storry for joining us and sharing her story.
To support Lea's book, Speaking ALS, an Anthology, visit ourfamilylines.ca/speakingals. All proceeds of the book go to the ALS Society of Canada, and there are currently $1,500 left to meet their fundraising goal.
For more information on the Carry Me Fund, visit Valley Regional Hospital Foundation's website at vrhfoundation.ca/carry-me. That is CAREY me.
For more information on the International ALS MND Symposium, visit als-mnd.org.
For more information on ALS, please visit the ALS Canada website at als.ca.
Thank you so much for listening. Join us again next month, where we'll speak to another member of the ALS community about their experiences and the passions that make them more than ALS. Bye for now.